submit that. The presentations begin on Wednesday, right? I'm not mistaken. It says the presentations are Tuesday, November 16th. All right. Well, we can leave it for Wednesday if you need the extra day. You probably have other key assessments as well. So I can assign the test on Tuesday. If you want to do it, finish it on Tuesday, you can do that. If not, you will still have ample time, and then we can leave the presentations for Wednesday and Thursday. If each one takes 5 minutes, like I asked for, we should be able to finish in 2 days. I would think the most it would take us up to the week 15, the first class. All right, so let's see if we can finish this today. I will take the attendance first and then we'll do that. Today is Thursday, November 11th. Franceli? Herman?
Here, though.
Ashley? Karen?
I'm here, sir.
Here, sir.
Damaris?
Here, sir.
Rachel? Shanice?
Here.
Leanne?
Present.
Linnell?
Present.
Kaylee?
Present, sir.
Brittany? Shanti? Naveen? Kiara?
Present.
Emily?
Present.
Alanis?
Present, sir.
Sherry?
Present, sir.
Jency?
Here, sir. Good morning.
Morning. Joanna? Kiana? Owen? Osiel?
Here, sir.
Very? Aisha?
Present, sir.
Jonathan?
Present, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning. I am Ashaili?
Present.
Elvis?
Present, sir. Good morning.
Morning. And Jamili.
Present.
Okay, that's it for attendance. Right, so we were looking at this handout. The questions will come from pages up to 10, from 1 to 10. So that includes the definition of research, a process of inquiry and investigation. It's also systematic, methodical, and ethical. So I will give you the choices and then you have to select the correct answer. Then we looked at the purpose of research. It can be one or a combination of these: review or synthesize existing knowledge, investigate existing situations or problems, provide solutions to problems, explore and analyze more general issues, construct or create new procedures or systems, explain new phenomena, generate new knowledge, or a combination of these, any combination of them. So we had 4 types of research here, and this will be one of the questions in the, or there will be questions on this: exploratory, descriptive, analytical, and predictive. So the exploratory is undertaken when few or no previous studies exist. So the word itself gives you an idea what the research is about. The aim is to look for patterns, hypotheses, or ideas that can be tested and will form the basis for further research. And descriptive. Descriptive can be used to identify and classify elements or characteristics of the subject. For example, number of days last because of industrial action. And quantitative techniques are most often used to collect, analyze, or summarize data. And yesterday we looked at the quantitative and qualitative. We said quantitative has to do with figures, statistics, and qualitative has to do with the expert opinions. It is more subjective. It can be challenged easily because what someone said 3 years ago can be challenged by what was found out or what's been found out since then. Analytical research often extends to a descriptive approach to suggest or explain why or how something is happening. For example, what are the underlying causes of industrial action? An important feature of this type of research is in locating and identifying different factors or variables. And variables are things that can affect our research. There are some that we can control and some that we can't control. We can manipulate certain variables. Some of them are beyond our control. Like if we do a field research out there, we might not be able to control the weather, temperature. But if we do an experiment in a lab, perhaps we can control the temperature. But out there in the field, it would be an uncontrolled variable. And predictive, the aim of predictive research is to speculate intelligently on future possibilities based on close analysis of available evidence of cause and effect. For example, predicting when and where future industrial action might take place. So we can predict when this might take place based on what we have already studied or what we have already found out. So it would be an intelligent speculation because we would be working on something based on something that we already know. And the research approaches, here's where we had the quantitative and qualitative, applied and basic, and deductive and inductive. Many research projects combine a number of approaches. For example, you may use both quantitative and qualitative approaches. So let's look at the quantitative and qualitative. I saw in some lecture reviews, some of you had figure statistics, which is leaning towards quantitative. The emphasis of quantitative research is on collecting and analyzing numerical data. It concentrates on measuring the scale, range, frequency, etc. of phenomena. This type of research, although harder to design, is usually highly detailed and structured and can be easily collated and presented statistically. On the other hand, qualitative research is more subjective. Quantitative research involves examining and reflecting on the less tangible aspects of our research. For example, values, attitudes, perceptions. Although this type of research can be easier to start, it can often be difficult to interpret and present the findings. The findings can also be challenged more easily. So when we say this is subjective, it means that it can change. It's not like a statistic that you find and you can prove it based on graphs and charts. In this case, these findings are based on things, expert opinions, and other values that are like attitudes and perceptions that can be challenged or they can change over time. Then basic and applied research. The primary aim of basic is to improve knowledge generally without any particular applied purpose in mind. So if I simply want to do a research to find out if the leading cause of fatal traffic accidents in Belize is driving while texting, or is it driving under the influence of alcohol, then my focus is to prove which one is the leading cause, but I already have an idea. So I don't intend to use my findings to intervene or change any of that. I simply want to answer a question. Whereas with applied research, this is designed from the start to apply its findings to a particular situation. So let's say that I am doing a research to come up with strategies to control bullying in schools. So my findings will help me arrive at some strategies that I could possibly implement that could make a change or could help to control bullying. So it's more, I have the intention of applying my findings to create a change, but simply researching whether this or that is the major cause of traffic accidents would simply be to answer my question. In the other one, I would be looking to find possible ways to combat or contain or control bullying. Then inductive and deductive. So here I said I was looking for a way to remember these two. And I believe that the deductive as decrease and inductive as increase is quite effective. For example, here you look at this diagram, the wider side is the general ideas, and they go from general to specific. So from wide to narrow, so we're decreasing. Here in inductive, we start with narrow and then we go to wide. So we're increasing. So this is a specific situation to a general idea. Deductive research moves from general ideas or theories to specific particular situations. The particular is deduced from the general, for example, broad theories. Inductive research moves from specific situations to make or infer broad general ideas or theories. So here's an example of inductive and deductive research in action. So imagine if you wanted to learn what the word professional meant to a range of people. So we'll try the deductive approach. This would be going from general to specific. So it's clear that you want to have a clear theoretical position prior to collection of data. You might therefore research the subject and discover a number of definitions of the word professional. For example, a number of professional or a number of professional associations. You could then test this definition on a range of people using a questionnaire, structured interviews, or group discussion. You could carefully select a sample of people on the basis of age, gender, and occupation. The data gathered could then be collated and the results analyzed and presented. This approach offers researchers a relatively easy and systematic way of testing established ideas on a range of people. So when I find the word professional, it's applying to a range of different people or a number of professional associations. But then I want to limit that word professional perhaps to certain or a group of people based on age, gender, or occupation. So I'm going from general to a specific sample of people. In inductive, if you adopted this approach, you might start by talking to a range of people. So now I'm talking to a number of different people, asking for their ideas and definitions of the word professional. From these discussions, you could start to assemble the common elements and then start to compare these with definitions gained from professional associations. The data gathered could then be collated and results analyzed and presented. This approach might lead you to arrive at a new definition of the word, or maybe not. This approach can be very time-consuming, but the reward might be in terms of arriving at a fresh way of looking at the subject. So if I start from a range of people, I'm going to arrive at a definition that applies to a specific amount, because I'm going to take the common elements and then compare them with the definitions gained from the professional association. So increasing from general to specific. I mean from specific to general, sorry. So deductive is from general to specific, and inductive from specific to general. So research philosophies. Research is not neutral, but reflects a range of the researcher's personal interests, values, abilities, assumptions, aims, and ambitions. In the case of your own proposed research, we're not writing a research paper, but that's why we're calling this an intro to research. Your own mixture of these elements will not only determine the subject of the research, but will influence your approach to it. It is important to consider in advance what approach you want to take with your research and why. Here we start with the approaches. There are essentially two main research philosophies or positions, although they can overlap between the two, and both positions may be identifiable in any research project. So the positivistic, which can also be referred to as quantitative, objectivist, scientific, experimentalist, or traditionalist. And then there's the phenomenological, which can be referred to as qualitative. Remember, qualitative doesn't lean on figures and statistics and graphs. That's why it's more subjective, subjectivist, humanistic, or interpretative. So all of these point to a research that can have a different meaning depending on how you look at it. The research philosophy can impact on the methodology adopted for the project. So here are some questions to answer when we look at methodology. The term methodology refers to the overall approaches and perspectives to the research process as a whole, and is concerned with the following issues: why you collect certain data, what data you collected, where you collected it, how you collected it, and how you analyzed it. A research method refers only to the various specific tools or data or ways data can be collected. For example, if you used questionnaires or interviews, checklists, etc. So now we look at the characteristics of positivistic and phenomenological. First, the positivistic. We said this is the one that is more scientific than the other one. Positivistic approaches to research are based on research methodologies commonly used in science. They are characterized by a detached approach to research that seeks out the facts or causes of any social phenomena in a systematic way. Positivistic approaches are founded on a belief that the study of human behavior should be conducted in the same way as studies conducted in the natural sciences. Positivistic approaches seek to identify, measure, and evaluate any phenomena and to provide rational explanation for it. So this is assuming that humans can be evaluated or observed just like the other natural sciences. And then the opposite to this is the phenomenological approach. This explanation will attempt to establish causal links and relationships between different elements or variables of the subject and relate them to a particular theory or practice. There is a belief that people do respond to stimulus or forces external to themselves, and that these can be discovered, identified, and described using rational, systematic, and deductive processes. So this is saying that our behavior can be observed just like the way we study biology and chemistry. There must be a cause to everything that we do. But let's see how the phenomenological approach looks at this. The phenomenological approach, however, approaches the research from the perspective that human behavior is not as easily measured as phenomena in the natural sciences. Human motivation is shaped by factors that are not always observable. For example, inner thought processes so that it can become hard to generalize, for example, on motivation from observation of behavior alone. Furthermore, people place their own meanings on events, meanings that do not always coincide with the way others have interpreted them. This perspective assumes that people will often influence events and act in an unpredictable way that upset any constructed rules or identifiable norms. They are often actors on a human stage and shape their performance according to a wide range of variables. So this counters the positivistic approach in that humans cannot be observed the way that we have already studied biology and chemistry, because humans can act based on different reasons, different thought processes. So not every human will respond the same way. So if we, like in the positivistic approach, we want to think that if a person has suffered heartbreak, they are more than likely to develop trust issues in future relationships. However, in the phenomenological approach, we would believe that even if this is so for most cases, it will not always be guaranteed that because I suffered emotional or heartbreak or rejection, that I will develop trust issues in my future relationships, because every human responds differently. Phenomenological approaches are particularly concerned with understanding behavior from the participant's own subjective frame of reference. Research methods are chosen, therefore, to try and describe, translate, and explain and interpret events from the perspectives of people who are the subject of the research. So this attempts to limit the findings to that particular subject instead of going by something that has been shown to work for the majority. Like in the positivistic approach, we could probably find out that 95% of people who have suffered emotional abuse or rejection or heartbreak end up with trust issues for the rest of their lives, or at least in their relationships. Here they break down the research methodologies under the approaches. So the main research methodologies are summarized below and can be linked to positivistic and phenomenological research positions or approaches. However, as mentioned earlier, research often contains both positivistic and phenomenological approaches. And that's true. We can't have a research that is 100% positivistic or 100% phenomenological. For example, a survey that also contains qualitative work from participant observation. And qualitative would mean it has to do with their attitudes and norms, values, not with figures and statistics. So here we have the list under positivistic and another list under phenomenological. So we'll look at both of these. I think they give us first the positivistic methodologies, and that begins with the survey, then experimental studies. So the last thing we will cover will be the grounded theory. So we'll begin with the surveys. Surveys involve selecting a representative and unbiased sample of subjects drawn from the group you wish to study. The main methods of asking questions are by face-to-face or telephone interviews, by using questionnaires, or a mixture of the two. There are two main types of survey. A descriptive survey, which is concerned with identifying and counting the frequency of a particular response among the survey group. Or an analytical survey, which aims to analyze the relationship between different elements or variables in a sample group. So let's see if I have, I'm doing a survey for Centaur Cable Network, and I want to know what channels viewers want, or which ones they do not like, so that we can make adjustments to the channel lineup. So in my descriptive approach, then I'm finding the frequency of responses. So how many people like HBO? Maybe I have 2,000 customers and maybe 1,900 of them like this. So I might be tempted to keep that. But then in another question, I also include a variable, which is age. And then I mention how many people like wrestling or sports. And then I include an age range, like 15 to 25, then 25 to 49. These are just examples. And then based on the number of people that like this in this age group, and then the type of content that they want to watch, I can make an observation that most of my customers between 25 and 49 or 50 like wrestling. See? And then these customers also take the category or the section that asks for gender, and they take on male. So I can make a observation that most of my male customers between 25 and 50 like wrestling. Then experimental studies. Experimental studies are done in carefully controlled and structured environments and enable the causal relationships of phenomena to be identified and analyzed. The variables can be manipulated or controlled to observe the effects on the subject studied. For example, sound, light, heat, volume of work levels, etc., can be manipulated to observe the effects. Studies done in laboratories tend to offer the best opportunities for controlling variables in a rigorous way, although field studies can be done in a more real-world environment. However, with the former, the artificiality of the situation is referring to the studies conducted in laboratories. It is more artificial because we are controlling the variables. Like if we have a lab and we control the temperature, it doesn't mean that out there in the real world, this is going to happen, right? Because we're manipulating the temperature indoors, but we can't do this outdoors. So the artificiality of the situation can affect the responses of the people studied. And with the latter, the researcher has less control over the variables affecting the situation under observation. And then longitudinal studies. These are studies over an extended period to observe the effect that time has on the situation under observation and to collect primary data. That means data collected firsthand of these changes. Longitudinal studies are often conducted over several years, which make them unsuitable for most relatively short-taught postgraduate courses. So I don't believe that in any of your classes we've had something like a longitudinal study, because this would involve years, not just one, perhaps 2 or 3 or more. But the cross-sectional study is something similar, but done with much less time. This is a study involving different organizations or groups of people to look at similarities or differences between them at one particular time. For example, a survey of the IT skills of managers in one or a number of organizations at any particular time, maybe 2 or 3 months during the year. Cross-sectional studies are done when time or resources for more extended research, which is longitudinal studies, are limited. So we don't have the time or the resources to invest like we would in a longitudinal study, which requires years of observation. Here, we may not have that amount of time, so 2 or 3 months will have to do for this. It involves a close analysis of a situation at one particular point in time to give a snapshot result. So it's not as in-depth or it's not as extended as the longitudinal study. And here we begin with the phenomenological methodologies. The case studies, and then the case studies are divided here. A case study offers an opportunity to study a particular subject, for example, just one organization in depth or a group of people, and usually involves gathering and analyzing information. Information that may be both qualitative and quantitative. Case studies can be used to formulate theories or be descriptive, where current practice is described in detail, or illustrative, where the case studies illustrate new practices adopted by an organization. Experimental, where difficulties in adopting new practices or procedures are examined. Or explanatory, where theories are used as basis for understanding and explaining practices or procedures. Researchers are using autobiography as a means of collecting information from small groups of respondents to seek patterns, underlying issues, and life concerns. This method could be used, for example, to trace the influences of variables such as social class, gender, and educational experiences on career development and career progression, or lack of it, within an organization. So this one work here, this autobiography, could answer all these questions pertaining to an individual's career. It can be, however, a time-consuming process, as it requires trust to be built between the researcher and the people concerned. Then we have action research. Action research involves an intervention by a researcher to influence change in any given situation and to monitor and evaluate the results. So the difference between this and the basic research is that here we will apply intervention. We found this and that, so now we will apply what we found to create change. The researcher working with a client identifies a particular objective. For example, ways of improving telephone responses to difficult clients, and then they explore ways that this might be done. So if my research was aiming to find strategies to improve telephone responses to this particular type of clients, then I must use my findings to see if I can improve the situation or change the situation. The researcher enters into the situation, for example, by introducing new techniques and monitors the results. This research requires active cooperation between researcher and client and a continual process of adjustment to the intervention in the light of new information and responses to it from respondents. Then the ethnography and participative inquiry are very similar. This form of research evolved from anthropology, which is the study of cultures, and the close study of societies. Ethnography is more usually described as participant observation. And this is where the researcher becomes a working member of the group or situation to be observed. The aim is to understand the situation from the inside, from the viewpoints of people in the situation. The researcher shares the same experiences as the subjects. And this form of research can be particularly effective in the study of small groups or small firms. And participant observation can be overt, meaning that everybody involved knows what is happening, or it can be covert, when the subject being observed for research purposes are unaware that this is happening. So covert meaning undercover and overt meaning open, meaning that everybody will know what it is. Yes, Elvis?
Sir, like for that one that you were reading about ethnography, that would be like the idiom that says put yourself in someone's shoes.
Yeah, so you can observe, maybe if you want to observe the lifestyle habits or coexistence of people in a particular community, you could put yourself in that situation. If they know that you're doing a research, then it would be overt. And if they do not know that you are there because you are making observations and so forth, it would be covert. But yes, you're right. To put it in those terms, it is correct, Elvis. So if only by putting myself in that situation will I appreciate what life is like there, right? So maybe if you do a covert study, just using an example here, like if you go to work in a particular organization, to see what the culture is like there, what the norms, what the work is, the task is like there, I can get a job there, but for the purpose of observing how things work instead of for the purpose of actually working there, right? So, well, I will be working, but I will be doing my study independently. So people there might think I'm just an employee, but that would be because I am covert. But if they know I'm there and I'm making observations and everybody's aware of it, then it would be overt. And participative inquiry. This is about research within one's group or organization and involves the active involvement and cooperation of people who you would normally work and associate with on a daily basis. So while the ethnography was working or studying a different environment, participative inquiry is doing this something similar, but in your own organization or environment. The whole group may be involved in the research, and the emphasis is on sharing, agreeing, cooperating, and making the research process as open and equal as possible. Clearly, this type of research can work when the student is already an active and known member of any organization, and therefore may be particularly suitable approach for part-time employed students in their own workplaces. If you're already working somewhere, then and you're studying the environment or how things operate in the place where you work, then you'll be doing participative inquiry. But if you were doing this somewhere else where you do not work, and it's just for the purpose of gathering data and observation, then it would be ethnography. So we're down to the last two. This is the last page. Questions will only reach up to here. The bonus questions for the test. So feminist perspectives. So this falls under phenomenological, right? Research from a feminist perspective focuses on knowledge grounded in female experiences and is of benefit to everyone, but particularly to women. In a business context, for example, research might center on the role of women in an organization and on their views, roles, influence, and concerns. So while the research is more centered around women, it can also have positive gains for others involved. But women will be in the center of this. Feminist research perspectives have a number of common starting points. First, that women and their contributions to the social and cultural life have been marginalized, and this is reflected in the past research practice. Second, that men and male perspectives or norms have dominated previous research. And third, that gender, as a significant factor in understanding the world, has been absent from understandings and interpretations of social phenomena in favor of categories, for example, social class. Feminist perspectives draw attention, therefore, to how women or women's concerns may in previous research have been excluded, ignored, or relegated to the side, periphery, to the edge, or not given much importance, just cast aside. It also raises questions, therefore, about why some forms of knowledge become or are perceived as more valid than others. And finally, the grounded theory. Grounded theory reverses approaches in research that collected data in order to test the validity of theoretical propositions in favor of an approach that emphasizes the generation of theory from data. So when we do a research, usually we already have a theory in mind. We already believe that people who drink and drive and text and drive are the ones who cause accidents in Belize, or are two of the major causes of accidents in Belize. So we already have that preconceived thought in our mind. So when we start to research, all we're doing is simply gathering data to prove that which we already believed in the first place, to prove that it's not just our assumption, but like this says, that goes from theory to data. But in the grounded theory, the aim is to start with an open mind. So I will gather my data based on events that happen I will not go in thinking that I already know what will happen and I just have to prove that it is true. So theory is generated from observations made rather than being decided before the study. This approach seeks to challenge research approaches that unwittingly or wittingly look for evidence in the data to conform or deny established theories or practices. So when, like I said, when we already know or we assume that people who drink and drive or text and drive are the two major causes of traffic accidents in Belize, then we already closed our scope there, and we are just aiming to prove that. We don't have another theory in mind. This is what we believe. No, we just want to gather data to prove that it is like that, right? So that's not really grounded theory. The feeling behind this is that you will often find out in research what you are looking for. But if an open mind is kept, new ways of perceiving a subject or ways of categorizing or applying data gathered may be discovered or advanced. The aim of grounded theory is then to approach research with no preconceived ideas about what might be discovered or learned. Silverman summarizes the main features and stages of grounded theory. And the first one is an attempt to develop categories which derive from data. Attempting then to give as many examples as possible in the categories developed in order to demonstrate their importance. And lastly, then developing these categories into more general and broader analytical frameworks or theories with relevance to other situations outside the research project. So with the grounded theory, I go out and I make observations and then I gather data. Whereas in the traditional approach, I already have an idea of what I want to find. All I'm going to do now is go out and collect the data to prove it. All right, so the questions will only reach up to number 10, page 10 here. Maybe in the next semester we look at this section, but for now, the intro ends with page 10. So we'll review this in the next class, and I will assign the test on Tuesday, but I will give you ample time to submit it so that the presentations can begin on Wednesday, then we'll have Thursday, possibly Monday, and then we should be done. All right, so any questions or any concerns about the presentations that are coming up next week, Wednesday? No? All right.
Our summary for the for our presentation is due on Tuesday.
The summary for the presentation? No, the presentation is due Wednesday. I want to grade what you present on your screen, and then of course that will have if you will pre-record it, make sure that you use your camera because the attire and facial expression, body language will be part of the rubric. So I think I mentioned Tuesday in the requirements, but does anybody have a problem if we start Wednesday so that Tuesday we just review the final section that we went over today, and I assign the test, and then if you want to do it the same day, you can. I'll give you ample time. I can't tell you right now how much, but it's definitely more than the class hour. In fact, more than the rest of the day. Usually I give you up to midnight, but I want to give you more time for this because it's the last one of the last grades, right? So we only have 3 grades here that we're looking at. The one that you submitted Monday, this for next week, Wednesday, and the test. So 3 of them are big grades. I think the test is worth about 80 points or more. The presentation will be 40 and the lit review is 150. So that's roughly close to about 300 points. So it's Wednesday, right? So I will change it. I will, Jensei asked for me to send something where you can send your presentation. And I will do that today. It wasn't compulsory that I want this, but in case, like I said, some students sometimes have problems with their computer. If I have your presentation, then I can always play it for you and then you narrate it. All right, so the plan is Tuesday we review this, then I will assign the test, and then Wednesday at 11 we can begin, or anybody wants to do this on Tuesday. I don't think anybody wants to volunteer Tuesday. I had previously said it for Tuesday, but out of consideration, I'm thinking the extra day might help somewhat. Volunteer for Wednesday. All right, so I will take it like most people would prefer it for Wednesday, which is fine because we'll still have Wednesday, Thursday, and then the following week we'll have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we'll have at least 5 hours to finish all the presentations. And if we finish earlier, then we don't need to occupy the last class or 2, which will be on the 25th and 24th. Remember, classes end on the 26th, and if you will have an exam, it will be in the week of the 29th to the 3rd of December, 29th of November to 3rd of December. You guys have an exam to do? Or do you have 3 key assessments?
We have one exam for plant and animal physiology, sir.
Yeah, from Miss Erica.
And all the rest are key assessments? I think you guys take like 6 courses, right? All right, so for now, at least we know that for this class, it will be the key assessment. So this is the final grade. So I guess we would need to take it very seriously. And then I hope to give back some results or all, if possible, within the week of the 29th to the 3rd. Okay, thank you, Kaylee. All right, well, that will conclude it for today, guys. I will see you again on Tuesday for a quick summary on this last section. Then I will assign the test and you can look at it. If you have any questions, you can ask. Then if not, I will give you enough time to do it. And the presentations will begin on Wednesday. So whether it's pre-recorded or you can do it in real time, it doesn't make a difference. The grading will remain the same, right? So enjoy the rest of the day, guys, and have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you again Tuesday at 2:30. Okay. Okay, thank you, Shanti.
Likewise, sir.
Elvis.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Elvis. You too.
Hi, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.